He stopped. She is not a yes or no. He stopped in front of a moving car. Yes or no?
She was backing up.
She was backing up. Is not a yes or no. He stopped in front of a moving car. Yes or no? See, you're struggling right now because you know the answer is yes. He stopped in front of a moving car, but you know that kind of questions his self-defense claim. You know that kind of questions that. You know that kind of questions. You know that kind of questions the self-defense claim, because if you're putting yourself in front of a moving vehicle and then using the fact that the vehicle is moving as justification for self-defense, that doesn't sound like a very good self-defense claim, does it?
Quite frankly, you need to subscribe to Rinnycast.
This Make America Great hat is 2 stops away.
Based.
Hell yeah.
I can't wait to trigger so many snowflake conservatives. It's gonna be so fun.
Post only the remaining Democrats believe your post. That's why no conservative has come up to actually meaningfully challenge it. Like, keep in mind, the 2 challenges that I've gotten to this prompt is that Donald Trump does hate the Constitution, but it's based, or Donald Trump does hate the Constitution, but the Constitution sucks. That's the only 2 arguments. Like, I haven't even gotten an argument on the proposition that Donald Trump doesn't hate the Constitution. Every debater that's come up, just to be super clear, has conceded that Donald Trump does hate the Constitution. That's the initial concession that literally every single one of them made. They just argued that the Constitution sucks. And I understand that that's appealing to the MAGA folk right now, but...
Real quick, on the idea that the Constitution isn't reining in Trump, and therefore it's bad. On that topic, you don't, if somebody's breaking into your house, you call the cops. You don't call a judge, right? The Supreme Court is supposed to be slow and deliberate, and we're supposed to rely on the executive to honor his oath to protect and follow the Constitution. And yeah, the problem with our constitutional order right now is obviously we haven't impeached him. That's it.
Yeah, true. Which is a problem with the legislator. But like, at the same time, it's a really hard question to answer. Like, oh, we have an impeachment process. What happens if the people in charge of the impeachment process are derelict of their duty? It's like, I don't know. That's a hard question. I don't know why we're pretending to have that answer. I'm not saying that like this is a perfect time and that Donald Trump isn't like pushing the guardrails, but to say that this makes the Constitution like a non-starter, I think is a word that I can't say on TikTok.
Yeah.
But, hey, what's up, buddy?
Yeah, what's up?
What are you watching in the background, big dog?
Smiling Friends.
Oh, okay. Are you a Trump supporter?
Yeah. Oh my god, my back.
Do you disagree with the prompt?
I want to hear what you feel about it, and then I want to go on from there.
I think Donald Trump has violated the Constitution in a lot of ways, and I think when we look at the principles that like went towards ratifying the Constitution, Donald Trump doesn't hold any of them, or at least he holds very little of them.
Can you use the examples, please? Like
examples of which one? Examples of number 1 or examples of number 2?
Just breaking the Constitution. I want to hear.
Like the violations. I mean, you could look at him trying to revoke the student visas on the grounds of constitutionally protected speech. You could look at him robbing like due process rights from different groups of immigrants. You can look at him, you know, the ICE memo going through DHS saying that ICE officers have the ability to enter private property without a judicial warrant, which is against the 4th Amendment.
Do you have proof of any of this?
Yeah, he was ruled against in AAUP versus Rubio. The Lyons memo was released by a whistleblower. JGG versus Trump, his own Supreme Court shot him down because he wasn't offering due process rights to certain immigrant groups.
Okay. I'm sorry, I'm sick as shit right now.
It's all right, buddy.
My voice hurts. So that's what you have, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so now I want to build off from that. How do you feel? You know, probably people ask this all the time. How do you feel about the Venezuela situation with that stuff?
Pretty indifferent.
Can you explain?
I just don't care all that much about it. It seems like Maduro was a pretty bad guy. I'm just.
At least we have something to agree on. Okay, what about this? Is it the senator of New York? Him saying that he's not going to allow ICE to go into New York.
Based.
How's that based?
ICE is violating a bunch of people's constitutional rights. I think that, you know, letting the secret police force in with no accountability is probably not a good idea.
You know that breaks laws too, right? New York, the senator is breaking illegal laws, right?
But yeah, the question is what laws are more important to uphold. I think the Constitution is probably like the supreme law of the land. I think that if there's a secret police force coming in and violating a bunch of people's rights and violating the law to do a bunch of these things, then I think that you probably should have some obligation to resist that violation of the of your constitutional rights.
So, are you talking about like the people that have been murdered by ICE? Or are you trying to talk about that?
I mean, that definitely doesn't help, right? The fact that ICE is just going down through and gunning people down, that definitely doesn't help.
That woman, the woman in the car, she hit an ICE agent and he had internal bleeding all the way to his waist.
Get internal bleeding all the way to his waist. Okay, so do you agree that it is like that she did die? Do you agree with that?
Attempt of murder on a agent? Yeah, I think she also
you understand that Renee didn't, like, the officer didn't attempt to murder Renee. He did murder Renee, right? You acknowledge that?
No, I'm talking about how she attempted murder.
Okay, we're only going to blame Renee. We're not going to blame the ICE agent at all, or
blame for what? He was standing his ground for his phone.
But maybe blame for like walking in front of the car and then stopping.
Get out of the vehicle.
Maybe blame on the ICE officer for walking in front of the vehicle and then stopping in front of the vehicle after he knew the vehicle was moving.
Not even that close, bro. He was not even that close. You can look at the video.
He certainly was. He certainly was. Yeah, he walked in front of the vehicle.
And then
he stopped. He pulled his gun.
To get out of her vehicle.
That's not the problem. You're allowed to. That's fine.
That's resisting arrest. Resisting arrest.
Yeah, resisting arrest. The punishment for that is not getting shot in the fucking face.
And then her attempted murder on an ICE agent. Or
yeah, you're just presupposing. You're just presupposing that, right? Like there was none of her actions were consistent with trying to hit that ICE officer.
She hit the fucking ICE agent.
Yeah, because he stopped in front of her car, right?
She was all the way back.
Right. So why did he? So if the vehicle was backing up, why do you think the ICE officer stopped in front of that moving vehicle?
He did not. She went and went forward, not back.
I don't know why you're talking about this video when you either don't remember it or have never watched it. She backed the car up. She backed the car up, right? She backed the car up. Okay. She cut the wheel and then she started moving forward. As she was backing up, the ICE officer who was walking around the car, who could have just continued walking out of harm's way, stopped in front of the car. Why do you think he did that?
For what? I want to hear you on this.
That's what I asked you. Why do you think he stopped in front of her car?
To stop her?
To stop her car.
And she
Do you think he was going to stop that car?
He was in the way, so she didn't hit him.
So if I'm like trying to stop a car going down my road and I jump in front of the car, do you think it's fair to say that car hit me, or do you think it's fair to say that I stopped in front of a moving car?
Front of the car.
Well, he literally stopped in front of a moving car, no?
He didn't jump in front of the car. He
literally stopped in front of a moving car, yes or no?
He
stopped it. She is not a yes or no. He stopped in front of a moving car, yes or no?
She was backing up.
She was backing up is not a yes or no. He stopped in front of a moving car, yes or no? See, you're struggling right now because you know the answer is yes, he stopped in front of a moving car, but you know that kind of questions his self-defense claim. You know that kind of questions that. You know that kind of questions. You know that kind of questions the self-defense claim, because if you're putting yourself in front of a moving vehicle and then using the fact that the vehicle is moving as justification for self-defense, that doesn't sound like a very good self-defense claim, does it?
She was backing up the car, like you said. Right?
True.
And then he stopped. There was at least how far were they? I don't know how far, but they were at a pretty good distance, and then she went forward.
Okay.
She went forward.
So now my question is, don't you think it would have been better if the ICE officer just got out of the way of the car?
She was backing up, though.
She was backing up doesn't answer that question. Don't you think it would be better if the ICE officer just got out of the way of the car if there was so much space between him and the car?
Well, let's see.
especially since his training, like the training that ICE officers get in terms of use of lethal force, teaches you not to put yourself in situations where the only option is to use lethal force. So you think he should have just abided by his?
He didn't use.
He
any
shot her in the
force when she was
face.
backing up. He didn't use any force when she backed up and then hit him, and then
Sure. So the training that you get as an ICE officer is to not put yourself in situations where the only option that you have is lethal force, right? So what I'm saying is that ICE officer should have abided by his training, just got out of the way of the car. Because obviously humans can't just stop out the force of a car. He shouldn't have put himself in front of the car. He shouldn't have stopped in front of the car, and he certainly should have just gotten out of the way of the car, especially knowing that it was moving the whole time.
She backed up and then he stopped.
Yeah, this is dog termination. Okay, just not even distance. Critically. Are you like actually going to engage with what I'm saying, or do you want to just talk to yourself in a corner?
I'm not talking to myself in a corner.
You are, because you're not engaging with anything that I'm saying.
Okay, I'll engage to what you're saying. Go.
Okay, do you believe that the ICE officer should have just abided by his training and got out of the way of the car?
Okay, sure.
Okay. So the ICE officer was probably in the wrong for shooting her instead of getting out of the way of the car.
She was also in the wrong for hitting him.
True, she was in the wrong. She shouldn't have been trying to flee. But he was also in the wrong for shooting somebody in the face when he could have just de-escalated the situation as his training applied, right?
Okay, so they're both in the wrong. Agree?
Uh-huh.
Okay, agreed.
Okay. So the problem is that when ICE officers are pointlessly escalating situations to where both people could have left, but instead an ICE officer shot a woman in the face, that's probably good reason to not want untrained ICE officers. That's probably good reason to not want untrained ICE officers in your city, no? When ICE officers are disregarding their training for de-escalation and in favor of just shooting some woman in the face? On top of all of the constitutional violations?
And getting eternal bleeding. And also him getting eternal bleeding.
He should have moved. That's why you move. That's why you don't stop in the middle. Like, if I'm standing in the middle of the road, if I'm standing in the middle of the road, I can't use the fact that a car hit me as justification for self-defense.
She backed up, and also he told
exactly,
her
the car was moving the whole time. Exactly, the car was moving the whole time.
Okay,
How
so
stupid are you to move in front of a fucking moving vehicle? That's so stupid.
He went back, told her to get out of the vehicle, and she hit him with the car.
She was cutting the wheel away from the officer. She grazed him with the car. Okay, let's not pretend like she hit him at like 100 miles an hour. He got a bruise.
So then how did he had eternal bleeding in the report.
Well, you understand that like internal bleeding doesn't mean anything in and of itself, right? Like it doesn't mean that he had an organ bleed, right? If he had an organ bleed, he probably wouldn't have been walking away and then back on the field a day later, right? Probably wouldn't have been discharged from the hospital like 4 hours later, right?
Okay.
There's also like no credible evidence.
Well, stop. When you say he had internal bleeding, you're trying to like imply the fact that he had like some sort of organ bleed or like his organs were shutting down. He had a bruise, right?
Okay.
Okay. You acknowledge that Renee Good actually did have internal bleeding from the fact that she got shot in the fucking brain, right?
He had eternal bleeding.
Like, why even come up here and have these conversations if you have no fucking idea? Like, if you can't even engage with what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
why are you
bruises
here,
are a
bro?
form of internal bleeding, big dog. I mean, also, like, not to mention, like, if I'm a police officer and I hand a civilian a gun and then they pick it up, and I can't use that for justification to blast them. If you put yourself in a situation where lethal force needs to be used, then yeah, like that's the problem with the officer. Like that officer needs to be. There needs to be some kind of investigation for that. Not to mention, you can take out a driver of a car and it's still not going to stop, like we saw with the Renee Good situation, where it didn't stop after he shot her in the fucking head. Like it doesn't. You haven't neutralized the threat. The threat is the car, because just because the person isn't alive anymore doesn't mean the car stops.
Yeah, I don't understand. Like, if he had a taser, he wouldn't have been justified in tasing her, right? Because that taser would have made her like lose the control of the vehicle, and you know what I mean? Like, I don't understand how, if he's not justified to use a taser, why is he justified to use a gun?
True.
Because she's bad and evil and a demon rat.
True. This is true.
I'm glad you brought up how the internal bleeding that he's talking about was just a bruise. That's what I was gonna say.
Thank you, Twin. What's up, Montgomery?
Hello, how are you?
Hi. What's up?
Donald Trump hates Constitution. I don't think he does that.
Why not?
What was that?
Okay. I'm sorry. That was a bad question. So I think that Donald Trump hates the Constitution because of the countless
Wrong.
violations. True. Get this man a true. Hold on.
I'm stroking it right now, just in case y'all are wondering.
Yes, bro.
I need to send you the audio clip for Inshallah, my brother. I'm looking Donald Trump, Inshallah, my brother. Love it.
Montgomery, go away.
I was shocked to learn that you're racist towards white people last night. That was shocking.
When did I say that?
You said it.
When?
How did you forget something so important? It was in the Discord.
Yeah, clip?
Yeah, I got you. Yeah.
You can't be racist against white people because they hold
true.
all the
Prejudice
power,
plus
and
power.
racism is
Yeah,
prejudice
come on,
plus.
walk in. Yeah, true. User. Hello, user. What's up?
Not much.
Do you disagree with the prompt?
I'd like to discuss the prompt. Yeah, I disagree.
Okay. I think that Donald Trump hates the Constitution because his rhetoric constantly goes against the principles that founded the Constitution, and we have multiple bad faith attempts to violate the Constitution.
When did he try to violate the Constitution?
You could look at his revocations of student visas for politically protected speech. You could look at his robbing of due process rights from the alien enemies.
How is that violating the Constitution when you can get your visa revoked?
You can't revoke somebody's visa for politically protected or constitutionally protected speech. Like
Says
on the grounds
who?
of, like,
What if they said they wanted
on
to?
the grounds of the court? Court ruled against him on it.
Who cares?
The court litigates what's illegal.
Queen.
He hasn't done anything illegal.
True. I concede. I concede.
Dude, the court ruled against him. Who cares? True. Oh my God, Queen. Also, the Columbine profile picture is interesting.
Yeah, there's a lot of interesting profile pictures on here, buddy. I don't know what to say at this point. What is up, the SWAT?
Hi.
Hi. You disagree with the prompt?
What?
Do you disagree with the prompt?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. I think that Donald Trump hates the Constitution because all of his rhetoric goes against the principles that founded the Constitution, or that went towards ratifying the Constitution, and because of his bad faith attempts to violate the Constitution.
Okay. What would you say he did to violate the Constitution?
We could talk about the fact that ICE agents right now, with authorization from higher ups in DHS, are breaking into private property without a judicial warrant. We can look at him trying to overturn American democracy in 2020. We can look at him revoking student visas on the grounds of politically protected speech. We can look at him robbing due process rights to the alien enemies.
Okay, well, on the, like, revoking visas and stuff, I'm pretty sure, like, you're not really supposed to, like, you can't say things that are threatening in any way if you're, like, on a visa, or else you get revoked or something.
Sure, there's certain restrictions to people on visas, their speech, right? But certainly those restrictions do not account for, like, all political speech, right? So somebody here on a student visa can say that, like, I don't support Israel, right? And they shouldn't have their student visa revoked. But that's what was happening is somebody like Romesa Ozturk, she wrote an op-ed saying that the head of her university should divest from Israel. And because of that, the HSI, which is a part of ICE, and the State Department tried to revoke her student visa.
Oh, I see. Well, like from what I've heard, at least, majority of the cases were just like people protesting and like riots and stuff, like getting their visas revoked.
Certainly some of them
But if
were,
that's the
but
case,
also
then
certainly some of them weren't, right? The problem is that they were targeting people because of their political affiliation and trying to like post hoc justify these sort of punishments, but you're not allowed to do that, right? In the same way that I can't, like if I was the head of the Department of Justice and I was investigating every Democrat because they're a Democrat and then I happen to find crimes on certain people, well, that's still illegal, right? You have to have some reason why you are investigating these people. In a lot of cases, the reason that they were investigating these students is because they were anti-Israel. And then they basically found post hoc justifications for a lot of them. And even the ones that they didn't find post hoc justifications for, they just attacked anyway, like Renee Ozturk.
Oh, well, I mean, like, you don't really need to have a reason to justify investigating someone. That's just like
You super do.
Why?
Because it's like a bedrock principle of the country, the idea that you need probable cause to investigate people.
No, you need probable cause to arrest someone or get into their property.
Or like to open an investigation, right? Like don't you need probable cause to open investigations? Am I wrong?
Not really. Like you just need cause in general.
Sure. So like I understand. So the standard by which you revoke a visa is different than that of opening an investigation. The reason that I was giving you that example is because you can't just target a group because of their political affiliations. That's against the First Amendment, and it's against the First Amendment principle as well. The idea is that like in the same way that the State Department couldn't revoke everybody's student visa because they were Jews, right? They can't revoke every Jew's student visa because they're Jewish. You can't revoke everybody who's anti-Israel's student visa because they're anti-Israel. You would need some other reason.
Yeah, like generally, I'd say that majority of the people that say they're anti-Israel usually conduct in a way that isn't really like how do I put it? Like so like they conduct themselves in a way that is threatening or destructive to the country, and that's why they usually get their visas revoked if they
that may be the case, but again you're kind of using the narrative to justify the outliers, right? Like so I don't think you can say that just because on average people who are anti-Israel are unruly, that means that you can revoke anybody's student visa because they're anti-Israel, especially in cases where somebody is anti-Israel and they are incredibly ruly, right? Like Renee Ozturk was going for her PhD, right? She was just writing op-eds to her president head. That's literally all they had on her. That was all that was attached to her report of intelligence.
I see. Well, in that case, I guess like that's not really okay, but
I agree.
I'd say like majority of cases it's fine.
And I would also argue that like that shows a contempt for the First Amendment principles, right? Like the idea that you're revoking somebody who is completely peaceful, who has every intention of being here with good intentions. The fact that you're revoking their student visas because of political opinions, I think that speaks against somebody's like value for the First Amendment, right?
I mean, like you could say that, but I don't think it means much because like if
I'm saying it just speaks against, like it's a piece of evidence, right? It speaks against it.
It does speak against it, but it also like it could just be like sort of like I don't know, an accident or something. You can't really say it was like from the higher ups, like it was just like Trump said this person needs to go because of XYZ.
Sure,
like,
but then when we look at it,
could have been just like.
But we look at it within like the totality of all of the rhetoric from the Trump administration. Like I feel like once you see that Donald Trump is talking about like suing law firms for representing their opposition in court, right? Or when you look at him saying that, or when you say that. Or when you look at Donald Trump saying that like 97% of the information coming from CNN and MSNBC is anti-Trump, and I think that's illegal, right? It kind of undercuts this idea that Donald Trump has any particular value for the First Amendment in any regard, right?
Wait, could you like? He said something about like suing law firms. That what was that about?
He was revoking grants from law firms that were representing his opposition in court.
Like what court cases?
Hold on. The name of the EO was I'll tell you the name of the court case, but the just first. The name of the EO was let me find it in here. Was it just Perkins Coie v. Executive Office?
Hmm.
The name of the executive order was addressing risks of from Perkins Coie LLP. Here's the complaint: Perkins Coie versus the DOJ. I think another case litigating this was Wilmer Cutler versus the Executive Office of the President, I think was one that was litigating this.
Oh, I see. And he was like suing, or no, like he was
like
trying to,
revoking security clearances and revoking funding from anybody who works with these law firms.
I see.
And the reason that he cited in the executive order was because they were blocking pieces of action that he took in court.
Oh. I mean, that sounds pretty like authoritarian, I guess.
I agree.
Yeah. That's
So I think it just speaks against Donald Trump's like values, right? Like if these are the kind of actions that we're taking, I don't know how we can see a world where Donald Trump values the First Amendment.
Huh. Yeah. I mean, like, I see that, but I see what you're going at. He does seem pretty bad.
Or like the there's also the one case, it's the American Bar Association versus the DOJ, where there was basically this there was this law passed called the Violence Against Women Act, and the DOJ was affording grants to the American Bar in furtherance of preventing in furtherance of like litigating domestic violence and like protecting victims of domestic violence. And then Donald Trump came in, he revoked all of those funding conveniently right after the American Bar came out and condemned a lot of the stuff that the Trump administration was doing. And they didn't give any reason.
They didn't give any reason.
No, they gave literally no reason. And the court found no evidence of the American Bar violating any of the conditions of any of the awarded grants.
Huh. Does anyone like talk about this? Like, I've been in like a lot of spaces. I've never heard of this stuff.
It's a lot of crazy. I mean, the problem is that like have you ever heard of like the flooding the zone stuff?
Flooding the zone?
It's like a strategy that Steve Bannon was doing, or that he was like describing from the Republicans right now, where the goal is kind of just to do as much shit as possible to where some of it goes under the rug, so you can kind of get away with a lot more than you usually can, because if you do like 6 terrible actions, the court can only really deal with 3 at a time, so that lets 3 under the rug, right? That's kind of the thing, is that like when you're focusing on like the fact that he's a litigated sexual abuser, when you're focusing on the fact that he tried to steal the 2020 election, when you're focusing on the fact that he's weaponizing the DOJ, it's kind of easy for these like kind of more niche grant termination lawsuits to go under the rug.
Yeah, I see that. I mean, like, honestly, I'd say that's most presidents in the like past few decades, in my opinion, at least.
I mean, the difference is that there's like kind of a willing disregard by the Trump administration for like any checks on his power. Like a lot of the Biden administration action, but like a lot of it was quick and fast, but it was on the grounds that there was a global health emergency, and the Biden administration was just trying to like recover from it. And there was a lot of bipartisan support there, so there was naturally just not a lot of resistance. The difference between Biden and Trump in that case is that Donald Trump is facing a lot of resistance. He's just kind of ignoring it, or saying that the courts don't have the authority to check him on a particular thing, or just blatantly ignoring court orders in a lot of cases.
Yeah, I mean, like, I'd say there's probably a justifiable reason as to why he's doing that in some cases. So like with the capture of Maduro, I'm pretty sure like he like completely disregarded the whole Congress and all that.
Mm-hmm.
He like completely like sidestepped them and just like took them out.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was pretty justifiable. I'd say it may have been unconstitutional, but at the same time, like it
The thing
it
is
was
that
like a good option.
there's a lot of like weird, like the amount of power that the president has in terms of like foreign policy is kind of an unlitigated thing. I know a lot of like the courts generally give deference to executive action in terms of like warfare or like deploying troops or whatever. So I think that that's something that's a little more justifiable legally too, just because like we give deference to the executive for that reason.
I see.
Like in terms of like domestic activity or like in terms of like ignoring court orders to release detained immigrants, right? Like it's not something that's ever been considered like an executive power, right?
Oh, well, about like the immigrants, doesn't he just like put them back in their country?
It depends,
Like,
right?
what-
So when ICE detains somebody, they have the right to file for this thing called habeas corpus, right? And what habeas corpus does is it challenges the constitutionality of your holding. And I think there was a ruling by a judge recently that said like I think it was 93 different rulings against the government on grounds of habeas corpus that just went completely unresponded to by the government. Which is pretty crazy.
Well, like, were these like immigrants or like illegal immigrants?
Well, the problem is that they hadn't been really litigated as such, right? Because if the constitutionality of somebody's holding was granted by a court, right? Like if an immigrant sues and says that the government is unconstitutionally holding me, and the court agrees, I feel like it's kind of hard to determine the status of that person. But regardless, the government has an obligation to release these people, and in a lot of cases, they're just ignoring it.
Oh, so they're just like keeping them?
Yeah, basically.
Oh, damn.
Yeah.
Some were citizens.
Huh?
Some of them were citizens. Like
Apparently, some of them were citizens.
Oh, I see. Well, like,
And I'm pretty sure the cited reason by the government is just that, like, hey, we're busy. Like,
I mean, that is true.
Yeah, but that's crazy, right? Like they're illegally holding U.S. citizens, and their excuse is like, hey, we're doing so much illegal shit, it's hard to keep up.
I see. Yeah, well, I guess I have to agree with you. He's just pretty unconstitutional, I guess.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I mean, like, regarding the ICE stuff, I'm pretty like, I mean, like, the Renee Good thing. Like, I'm pretty sure, like, the officer was pretty justified in what he was doing. Like, specifically that one. I don't know about the Preddy thing.
So here's how I look at the Renee Good situation: is that I think whenever you're using lethal force, I think there needs to be, I think there basically needs to be no other choice, right? Like, let's say that there's a situation where I can either get out of it by using lethal force, or I can get out of it not using lethal force. I think you have an obligation to get out of it without using lethal force if possible. And that's what I would say to the officer that shot Renee Good, is that he had every opportunity to get out of the way of the car. He had no reason to stop in front of the car unless he's fucking Superman, who can stop the car with his one hand. So the fact that he could have dissuaded that situation non-lethally, but instead he decided to shoot this woman in the head, even after the front of his body was behind the front of the car, just tells me that he probably shot her because she was fleeing, and you're not allowed to do that.
Okay, actually, I have like two things to say about that. So, like, for one, I don't think there should be no other option but to use lethal force. You should be able to use lethal force before there's no other option. Because in most cases, when there is no other option, that's when you just put yourself in a terrible situation. And if you don't use lethal force immediately, you'll probably get killed. But for two,
well, sure, but
I'd say
let's take it one at a time. All right. If you want to take a second, or well, if you want to say it, I'll write down. I can write down both of your things, and then I promise we could get to both of them if you want to.
Oh, okay, yeah, that works. So for like the second part, I'd say like, he was getting like, from what I saw the footage like after before we came onto this, he was moving while the car was like, I saw it from this body cam, I believe. He was moving, and then the car rolled back, and he was like moving to the side, and then the car came back at him. The Renee Good's girlfriend was or wife, I'm not sure their relationship, but she was trying to open the door. He came to the side, and while she was opening the door, the car rolled back, and then she pressed the gas onto him. So I'm pretty sure he got hit, and yeah, there was evidence of him getting hit with like the
Mhm.
internal bleeding, I believe, and also he was like that's when he like shot her when he got hit like as he got hit, so like it was more of a
Sure. So
self-defense thing.
the first thing is that, because I think this is more like a principle thing, you say that you should be able to use lethal force even if there is another option where lethal force wouldn't need to be used.
Yes, I believe that because of the like inherent danger of trying different options,
Mhm.
it can be like a bit of a a stretch to say, oh, you shouldn't have done this because like you could have used jujitsu to dismantle
Sure.
the gun or something, or like
So
yeah, but, like
what I'm saying is that like a probabilistic thing. Like it's theoretical that like if an officer has a gun pointed at him, I'm not expecting him to be Batman where he could just like push the barrel of the gun up in the air, the guy shoots off, and then he can like do some jujitsu and disarm him, right? I don't think there's an obligation there. More
yeah,
so what I mean is that like, let's say that you can 100% certainly dissuade the threat by getting out of the way, right? So let's say there's a car coming to you, you have the option to either shoot somebody or sidestep to the left. In that case, you have an obligation to sidestep to the left because the probability of that situation is that both of you come out alive. It is probabilistic that is going to be the case. Whereas if you shoot the person, you are 100% certain that the one person is going to die. I think that you would have an obligation in that case to dissuade that peacefully because we're saving 2 lives rather than 1.
I agree with that, but at the same time, you have to keep in mind that if he lets her go, this could turn into a car chase, and car chases can get really deadly, really fast. So like,
Theoretically,
if he like, yeah, like if like she tried to like turn it into a car chase and like they use some sort of pit maneuver and then like she crashes into a building, like that could happen. So
sure,
it's
but
better to like try and deal it without turning it into a car chase.
then we kind of we run into the problem where like, is it okay to shoot somebody for fleeing because they might pose a threat to everybody else? I think that in that case, so let's say it's either that you shoot somebody in the head or they flee. I think it's the case that like when you shoot somebody in the head, it's almost a 100% chance that they die, whereas if they flee, there's probably like I'd give like maybe a 10 or a 5% chance that they die. In that case, I still think that them fleeing is the preferable option there. Unless you're saying that like Renee Good is like so unhinged that that like she poses a threat to public safety, but I don't even think the ICE officers in that case were using that argument. They were using the self-defense argument.
Yeah, I mean,
So
yeah, I
but
think,
we agree on the principle insofar as like if we agree that the officer had the ability to sidestep and avoid the shooting of Renee Good, he should have done it, right?
yeah, but at the
Okay.
same time, actually, I was thinking about it, and I don't think he had the ability to sidestep at that time because like.
Well, that's what
we
we'll talk
could,
about in a
like,
second. That's what we'll talk,
okay.
because now we're getting into like the factual claims, right?
Yeah.
So I just wanted to agree on that principle first, because I mean, if I can demonstrate to you that he had the ability to sidestep, or that he, you know, or yeah, I guess just that he had the ability to sidestep, that he shouldn't have shot, and that would make the shoot unjustified, right?
True. Yeah.
So okay, the main argument that I have 2 arguments, right? So the first one is that it seems like the officer pulls his gun. So he walks around the side of the car. He stops in front of the car.
Yeah.
He sees that the car is backing up, and he pulls his gun as the car is backing up. So it's my impression that the only reason that he would have pulled his gun at that time is because he perceived some sort of threat to himself. You pull the gun for self-defense. But if that's the case, if he perceived the threat as she was backing up, surely he had ample time to just run behind a car, right? Or to get out of the way of the car.
Yes.
And since he did perceive the threat, as shown by him pulling his gun as the car was backing up, I think he had ample time to get away.
Yeah. I think maybe like in those situations he had his phone out, I'm pretty sure. So like he had both his hands sort of occupied if he took out his gun. I only saw like the body cam footage and the phone
Well,
footage.
he had the one hand on his phone, and he reached back with his other hand to grab the gun.
Oh,
But
I
I'm
see.
saying that the grabbing of the gun isn't so much being measured like as the action, but it's like the intention of the action. So,
I see.
like the reason that you would grab your gun is because you perceive a threat to yourself. But if you perceive a threat to yourself as the car is backing up, there's probably about like 5 seconds between the car backing up and it actually moving forward toward the officer. I think 5 seconds is more than enough for him to just dart behind a car. If he already perceived the threat as the car was backing up, right?
I see that. Perhaps maybe he was trying to get like a shot of everything happening, and then like he just sort of like didn't really think about darting back or something. Because like when you think about it from his perspective, he was like trying to like get the car from every angle, and then like his friend was saying, or not his friend, but I don't know if they're friends. His colleague was saying, "Get out of the car," and the car starts to move back. So like you're just like, okay, what's happening? I should probably get out my arm so that I can defend myself in case of anything. And then like, well, you're not really like moving because you're trying to like station yourself to defend yourself.
Well, in
It's not
such
really
a case, like if he perceives like if he's reaching back for the gun to defend himself, I feel like a reasonable person would know that like standing your ground with a gun is not going to prevent you from getting hit with a car. The answer in order to prevent yourself from being hit by a car is to get out of the way of the car.
I know, but I don't think he was trying to prevent himself from getting hit by the car. I think he was trying to prevent the car from moving forward.
Well,
And
if that's the case, then I think you lose the self-defense argument, right? Because if his aim was just to put himself in front of the car to prevent it from moving, I think that's akin to like, let's say that you see a car driving down the road 20 miles an hour and it's a perp that you're trying to apprehend, and then you jump in front of the car and then use that as justification for lethal force. Well, you put yourself in the situation where you had to use lethal force, so you can't claim self-defense. At that point, it's basically you're putting yourself and using lethal force in order to prevent fleeing, which I think you shouldn't. There's no justification to do, and is also illegal. You're not legally allowed to do that.
Yeah, but like he didn't put himself in that situation. She kind of like pulled back, and then he could have avoided the situation. Like there are things he could have done to avoid it, but he was already in the situation. So you, like
I would say it's akin. I would say it's akin to say that if he knew that there was an option to get out of a situation and he purposefully stayed in that situation to stand his ground, I would say that you did kind of put yourself in that situation. Now, also, just to be clear, I'm not saying that Renee Good is like, that she like abdicates any responsibility here. I think she is also responsible for trying to flee. I think she's also responsible for like trying to drive into, or like drive so close to like in proximity to officers. I think that she, like if you wanted to hit her with charges, that's fine. I just don't think her death was justified. I think that the ICE officer has the obligation to like get out of the lethal situation, and his training as an ICE officer also backs that up. If it's the case that the obligation is on him to de-escalate because he's a law enforcement officer, that's kind of the whole point, and he had an option to get out of the way of the car, knowing that it would, you know, he perceives the threat. He has two options. He gets out of the way of the car and both of them are still alive, or he stands his ground and he's using this as like a preventative for her fleeing, and then she flees. While that's part of the risk of stationing yourself in front of the car, I think that you're expecting the car to move forward and then using that as an excuse for self-defense, I think is just not, I don't think it's true self-defense. I think it's basically you trying to big dick the person, putting yourself in a dangerous situation where there'd be no other opportunity other than lethal force.
I know, but like, I think here, so like, I think it was more of just like he was trying to prevent her from moving at all. So like, if he moved out the way, then that would have created a chase. But if he stayed stationary, then perhaps if he pulled out his gun and then like aimed it at her and she got her hands off of the wheel, then perhaps she wouldn't have pressed the gas. So like, it was more of just like, if you think like more pragmatically, perhaps that would have been the best option if she was like not willing, or more willing to not like press the gas as he was pulling out his gun, then perhaps that would have been a better situation.
I think the problem is that like as a law enforcement officer, you should know like the probability of that happening, right? Like I like law enforcement officers know that you're not supposed to put yourself in front of a moving car in order to prevent the car from fleeing, because you're gonna get hit, right? Like that's it. Like the probability of you putting yourself in front of the car and then it stopping the person from fleeing is like dramatically small. So I think the ICE officer should have known that me just putting myself in front of this car isn't going to prevent the moving car from moving.
I know, but they know that, but like at the same time, if you put yourself in front of a moving car, but you have a gun, then that changes things. Because like,
no, I don't think it does, because like the gun itself isn't going to stop the car. You're literally like
but it'll stop the driver.
Sure, but the only way that you would stop the driver is by killing them, right? So then we get into the same situation where you're preparing yourself in order to kill somebody. I think you have an obligation to not do that. I think you have an obligation to get out of the way of the car instead of escalating to lethal force.
Yeah, I see that. Like, I mean, like, just to like sidestep, I think I agree with you on that part, but like, perhaps he couldn't have moved out the way, because like when I saw the footage, it seemed like he was just like a little preoccupied with like, you know, like the car moving back, and then he was pulling out his gun. So like,
well, so what I'm saying is that he shouldn't have pulled the gun, right? I'm saying that if he perceived the threat enough to pull the gun, I think a rational, because the standard is a rational person, right? It's not like, because it's also possible that this dude was like so fucking stupid that he couldn't perceive anything, right? But like the standard for self-defense, I think we should be using is like a rational person. Like a rational person, when they see a car in front of them, instead of grabbing a gun to prevent the moving of the car, which the only way you would do that is by using lethal force. Instead of that, a rational person would just move out of the way of the car.
Oh yeah, I mean like, you have to think about it like this. The car wasn't moving, so like, rationally, like logically, if the car were to move and like hit him, then he could have sustained the damage. But at the same time, like, he shouldn't have, like, I think like if he tried to like move out the way, like, how do I put it? I don't know actually. I think like,
okay.
Yeah, sorry, man.
You're all good. So I guess just to, so you said that the car wasn't moving, but like he knew that it was backing up, and you can see from his cell phone footage that you can also see the fact that she was cutting the wheel as she backed up. So you could see the car back up, and then she cuts the wheel. I feel like there's every indication that this car was going to continue moving, and we could see that from the officer's own perspective from his cell phone footage.
Yeah.
So I think that he shouldn't have stopped in front of the car, right? Like, I think he should have just gotten out of the way. I think a reasonable person would have done that. And I think because the ICE officer acted unreasonably and it led to lethal force, that means that the use of lethal force was unjustified because it was irrational. We could have rationally avoided this situation with both of them being alive had the officer not stopped in front of the car.
Yeah.
And then the secondary argument as well is that by the time, like if you watch back the footage, by the time the officer actually shoots the gun, his body is at the side of the car. The front of the car is in front of him. So the actual threat that the car had posed to him had been dissuaded by the time that he shot the first shot. I don't know if there's ever a world where you can claim self-defense when you shot the first shot at the side of the car. I don't think you can claim self-defense there unless you're like, you know, shooting Speed Racer who might like fucking tailspin hit you with the back of the car like that. But
oh yeah, I mean like morally you're right, there is no defense for that, but legally if you get hit by something and then you shoot back, then that's self-defense. Like,
no, I don't believe that's the case. I don't think that, like, legally it gets a lot more touchy. And I'm not a lawyer, so I'm not going to comment on like the legality or like the self-defense law is really complicated. But like when I say, so I would call the killing of Renee Good murder, because murder is just like an unjustified killing. Like morally, it sounds like you agree that this was an unjustified killing.
I mean, like, yeah, I mean, I think it was unjustified by the like in the standard that he just like he got angry after he got hit by the car and then he shot her. So that's not really justified. You shouldn't take out your anger on, like, you shouldn't take out your anger lethally.
Well, hey, that sounds like we agree.
Yeah. But I think like he still like I think he was still like in the right to shoot her, but like he shouldn't have done it.
When you say in the right, do you mean like he's just going to avoid criminal charges, or do you mean like it's justifiable?
Yeah, I think it's justifiable, but like it's not really like what he should have done though, if you get what I mean.
I don't get what you mean, because I feel like
Okay, so
those two things are like it sounds like you're saying it was right but it was wrong, right? Like
yeah. It's like here.
Are you saying that like it was wrong but
things
it's
like-
understandable maybe?
Yeah, something like that. So like you get cheated on and you kill your partner who cheated on you.
Sure.
That's justifiable, but it's not right.
So the problem is I'm gonna sound like a dick when I say this, but I don't mean it to sound like a dick. It's just a vocabulary problem. So like when we're making moral claims, like justified and unjustified is like moral claim, right? It's like whether or not something should or shouldn't have happened, right? So when you're saying something's justified, you're saying like it was a correct action, right? So you're saying that this was not justified in the same way that it wouldn't be justified for somebody to kill their ex-girlfriend for cheating on him, but you can understand why somebody would do it, right? Like you can empathize with somebody's mind state when they're taking actions like that. Am I getting you correct?
I think I just think like in that regard it would levy some like leniency toward the case.
Sure. So my argument in that regard is that if this was a normal person, I would actually probably agree. The problem is that we should probably hold law enforcement to a higher standard.
I mean, like
if you're agreeing that like this person only shot Renee Good because he was pissed off that he got grazed by the car, that person shouldn't be a law enforcement agent. Like you should have more wits about you, more control of your emotions, to where you're not just getting pissed off and shooting civilians, right?
I know, but like at the same time, like it's harder when like you have to understand that they're still like humans. Like there's no amount of control that will like make you not get angry at something like that. I like.
So the question isn't whether or not he should have been angry, though. I think it's fine for him to be angry. The question is if you can control your anger enough to not shoot somebody, right? Like I think you have an obligation as a law enforcement officer to be able to control your anger to a degree that if you get angry at somebody, you don't shoot them in the face, right? I think that's a standard that we should hold our law enforcement agents to. We generally do. But the problem is that these these regulations on ICE are being skirted by the administration. We got whistleblower reports indicating that exact same thing, that these people are not going through training and saying that they did go through training, or like a lot of the constitutional law training, they're just not going through. And a lot of the use of force training they're not going through as well. So the problem is like the standard that these people are supposed to live up to, they're just not, right? Like,
wasn't the guy who shot Renee Good like in the military?
Potentially.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I heard him. He was like in the military, and he
And there was also like a lot of stuff about like his time as an ICE officer not being so good. Like he got fucking drugged by that car or whatever. But the problem is that if it's the case that we're sending law enforcement officers, people with like more use of force than an average person, we should probably make sure that they also have like their mental wits about them more than an average person. And a lot of these ICE officers just don't. I can say that about the people who shot Preddy. I can say that about the CBP officers that loaded up that one lady after like sideswiping her car. I can say that about the person that shot Renee Good. They acted unreasonably, and while I can like empathize with them on a human level as to why they'd be pissed off, I would still say that this person should never be on the in law enforcement. He should be taken out of law enforcement.
Oh well, I mean, like I don't think he should be taken out of law enforcement for the distinct fact that like there's not really like, I think it was, just to roll back, I don't think it was just anger that made him shoot her. I think it was also like a sense of survival instinct, because like he did sustain some amount of pain, and when you do feel pain, it triggers certain amount of like certain chemicals like adrenaline and whatnot to your brain, and it like, you know, fight or flight and all that. And then you start like to do things. Your behavior changes in accordance to that.
I guess the problem is, I guess the problem is that like and this is like a pretty fundamental difference that I don't know how to cut through, is that a lot of people on the right, and a lot of people who are like super sympathetic to this administration kind of coddle law enforcement agents more than they should. And I think they end up coddling the law enforcement agents more than the actual victims of the law enforcement agents, right? So I could say in the same breath that I can understand that Renee Good was incredibly scared because she's somebody on the right, on the left. She's seeing all of the violations of CBP, of law enforcement, and she's in Minnesota, who like 5 years later or 5 years earlier was going through like all of the BLM stuff. There was a couple like high profile police brutality cases in Minnesota, so she's naturally very like cautious of law enforcement. And then she sees these people pull up in an unmarked vehicle, trying to pull on her door, guns drawn. Right, I can understand why she would be scared enough to flee that situation, but that doesn't change the justification of her doing that. In the same way, and she's a normal person. She doesn't go through like law enforcement training. She doesn't go through the training to know when it's okay to flee or like what the identifiers are law enforcement. Like there's a lot, I think there's a lot more speaking toward Renee Good's mind state of being suspicious than that officer's. Now I don't want to, I think all of that evidence doesn't actually change the justification of the shoot or the justification of the flee. But the problem is that once we like interjecting character evidence, or saying that like, oh, well, you know, this is what the human body naturally says or naturally does, I think that in such a case, I think Renee Good is justified for trying to flee because a bunch of unmarked law enforcement agents just came up and started tugging on her locked door and was pointing a gun at her for being like, wasn't she like right outside of her house after like all of this fucking crazy shit going on with ICE and all of this crazy shit going on with BLM in Minnesota?
Oh, well, like, I mean, like, in the footage, it seemed like she was just like, her and her like wife were egging them on, sort of. Like from what I saw, it
to a
seemed
certain
like
extent, maybe.
Yeah, they were like saying like he was fat and whatnot, and like
that was before the guns got drawn, though, right?
Yeah, that was before the guns got drawn.
So when the guns got drawn, I can understand why she would be like, just naturally, when a person sees an unmarked law enforcement officer pull a gun on them after like their city went through like a fuck ton of crazy shit in regard to police brutality. Can you understand why that person would want to flee at that point?
I mean, like, there is circumstances to this because like the police brutality, from what you're saying, it was about BLM, so like it was against like black people. I don't think like I don't think
well, not necessarily. I mean, like police officers kill white people too, but it's also just like it's the totality of circumstances, right? You see giant high profile police brutality cases in your home city. You see like the crazy like abuses of rights that are going on under the Trump administration. I think this was like a couple weeks off of the ICE detention shooting, right, where the one dude tried to shoot up the ICE detention center. So it's pretty crazy right now. I think the natural response of somebody like Renee Good would be to flee like that, but I think that's still unjustified, right? Because a reasonable person wouldn't flee in that case, just as a reasonable person after being tagged with a car probably wouldn't shoot somebody in the face. I think I'm fine with saying both are unjustified. But I hold law enforcement to a higher standard because these people have authorization of use of force. They should have their wits about them. They shouldn't be like escalating to lethal force if unnecessary. I that's the general idea.
Okay, yeah, I get it. So I guess how I'd argue is like I think you could say they were both doing some things that were very unjustified, but at the same time, like, I don't think, like in the same way, I wouldn't say she should lose her driving license if she survived. Like,
well, if she survived, would you agree that she should be like put in jail for fleeing?
Oh yeah, actually, I mean, like she should be put in jail for like hitting an officer.
Sure,
like,
yeah, I agree. But in the same way that if somebody has a history or if somebody like unjustifiably shot a citizen, they probably shouldn't have the right to carry around a gun as law enforcement, right?
I mean, like, yeah, but like there was circumstances in which he had not justifiable, like morally or
like legally. Understandable.
Yeah, it was understandable why. So like it wasn't like like he just went out. He was just blood raged and just like
sure,
he
but
saw.
Isn't it also understandable? Isn't it also understandable that if like somebody isn't engaging in like unjustified police practices, that they probably just shouldn't be a police officer anymore, or like a law enforcement agent?
I agree with that to an extent. So like, if you're like undercover and you're like selling weed, or like. If you're undercover and you're selling weed, then there's circumstances that would put you in the right for doing that. But if you're like just a normal
Sure.
officer who's just
Well,
who's
no,
just selling
I
weed to
actually
get
don't
by?
know. I don't know if you actually can't, like, if you're an undercover officer, I don't think you can actually sell weed. Like, I don't
Oh,
think
no,
you can.
you can sell weed, you just can't take it. From my knowledge, at least.
I don't know if that's true. I don't think you could distribute narcotics as a law enforcement officer, even if you're undercover, even if you're undercover or like illicit.
You can sell and buy weed. The one thing you can't do is you can't be a mastermind. You can't like organize and control a large group of people to do crime.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. Okay, so
And
well, even that, so that gets a little more complicated because the selling of the, like, okay, now we're getting into like philosophy, which I don't really want to get into, but the idea is that like you could justify selling the weed in furtherance of getting like this drug kingpin who's like trafficking narcotics across the entire country, right? Like you have to break an egg to like break an egg to make an omelet or whatever is the saying. But in this case, like I don't think there's any higher order good that having somebody like this on the field is going to do.
well, yeah, I think there is, because like the officer was clearly like he was trained in some way. He had military training.
Not well, but yeah.
not in the sense that he was like good at like he wasn't good at certain situations that he was put in on the force, like so like when he was encountered Renee Good, he wasn't good in that situation, but you can work upon that. I think it's like like it would be a waste to just like throw him out.
I mean,
I think
the problem is that like look, I don't know if you could work on like a tendency to shoot first, ask questions later. I don't know if that's something that we would want to risk working on. I feel like if that's your kind of temperament, you shouldn't be there, because we don't want to risk like somebody flying off the handle and killing a bunch of people, right?
No, but I don't think he was like he wasn't like in that temperament to do something like that. He was more just like he was reacting to the situation instead of like, because like,
Sure, but
you can work on reactions,
irrationally,
but
though.
you can't work on like.
He was reacting to the situation irrationally, though. Like he was giving irrational responses to the situation. Yeah, sure, but like when the consequences of like working on something is that people die, I don't think that you should do that. I think you're probably just better off firing that person. In the same way that like I'm almost certain that like if a standard police officer unjustifiably shoots somebody like out on patrol, do they bring those kind of people back? I don't think that typically like police precincts bring those kind of people back.
If they do it unjustifiably,
yeah.
They usually just have like some sort of like HR like, debate or something, and they work through a case, and like if it's determined, then yeah, they don't come back.
Yeah, so I'd say the same thing for the ICE agent, right? If this person unjustifiably killed this woman, then they should be gone.
Yeah, I agree with that. But at the same time, I don't think it was like I said, it was wrong, but I don't think it was not justified. So like.
Okay. Well, listen, I feel like we've litigated pretty deep on
we're
this.
going in circles.
All right, I love you, buddy. I'm gonna drop you down. Feel free to call up if you ever want to. All right. Yeah. I hope you stick around. You seem like a good kid. I don't know how old you are. You might be older than me, but
oh yeah, I'm 18. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, it's nice talking to you. I learned a lot.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.